Welcome to the Joy of Doodling, the art show where I will never tell you how to draw. All you'll need is something to draw with and something to draw on. That can be anything. It can be a pencil, it can be a Sharpie, it can be a knife on a piece of wood. Whatever you need to start doodling. I'm going to use this guy. And let's start with this sketchbook. I want you to tell me what this is. That's right. It's a bird catching a worm. And that's going to bring us to today's theme. Lines. Yay! So when I was a kid, I don't know, I was maybe 6 or 8 years old, I remember the teacher told us to draw little birds in the sky. We were drawing a rainbow or something, I don't remember, but drawing little clouds, and she said to draw a bird in the sky using a black marker. Just make little M's. See, look, they look like birds. But me, I liked cardinals. The northern cardinal was my favorite bird, so I used a red marker. I said, oh, it's a cardinal. And then my teacher came up and said, that's wrong! It's supposed to be a black M. To which I replied, shut the up, you're not my dad! I didn't say that. I was a child and non-confrontational. I don't remember what happened after that, but I never took an art class again until college. So I learned a lot on my own. One of the ways that I learned the most was by doodling. There's something about the margins of notes that forces you to be strategic in your line usage when you're drawing. Anyway, what am I getting at? So the reason I say I don't want to tell you how to draw is, again, I never liked being told how to draw, and I also fundamentally disagree with the idea that there is a wrong way to draw, especially doodling. A doodle can be... There, I doodled. Mission complete, you know? I mean, if you want to talk about, there's definitely ways to be more or less effective, right? If you want to draw a circle, that's more effective of a circle than this is, right? But at the end of the day, what does it really matter? So, I would like to create give you some tools to put in your tool belt, and then learn how to teach yourself. Always be curious, ask questions about the world, observe how different objects interact with each other and live together in the world, and then you can figure out how to draw them. At least that's what I like to do. So, what can we do with lines? Let's just start with just a straight line. What can that be? That could be the edge of a hard object. It could be, it could be a sword. Look at all these straight lines. It could be a sword. Now we could take that same sword and we can just add some little notches. Now it's a little older, it's a little more used, battle worn. But what if we just add some dotted lines? Right? Nothing crazy here. We're not reinventing the wheel. Using simple techniques. Right? Maybe it's farther away. So it's a little more broken by the air in between you and the object. That same line can also be a body. An entire organic creature can exist in that single line. Right? We just did a doodle. Now let's break up that line a bit. What if we just throw in just little dudes? Little dudes. Right? What does that look like? To me that looks like maybe grass. Maybe it's a hill. You know, maybe when it gets closer we see more the definition of the blades of grass. Can add some little. This is something I learned when I was a kid. Don't draw grass like that, okay? It's boring. I mean, you can. Again, don't let me tell you not what to do. Don't listen to that. You can draw it like that. You can draw it like that. One thing I really like is you draw it, just throw in a little bended one. Look at that. Make them a bit longer, shorter. Look, easy peasy. Grass. It could even be hair, right? What if there's a little doggy right here? Maybe he's pooping in the grass. This could also, let's say, it could just be a soft barrier instead of a hard barrier between an object and its background. So we got an arm, I guess. Here we go. Almost like an arm. And then we can add like boop, 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 boop. Done. It's not anatomically correct at all, but it kind of looks like it could be, right? Again, I'm not trying to give you a perfect anatomy lesson. I'm sure you can find plenty of people on this website that do that a lot more professionally and better than I can. Dotted lines can be a lot of different things. They can be shadows. They can be, fishing line. What about that? Be, you can use it to texture things. Again, like this guy. So I don't intend for this in any way to be a comprehensive breakdown of every possible thing you can do with lines. Or, again, I just want to present some tools that you can use and hone in your own way, figure out your own style, and maybe one day teach me something. I'm always learning. I don't there's always something you can be wrong about. All right, so we're talking about different types of lines. We can also, obviously, the thickness of the line can say a lot too. Right? These can be all sorts of different things. You can have different thicknesses going throughout. Different line weight, how heavy the line is or how light it is. A lot of times it's used to show perspective. So the thick line closer to the camera or the POV or whatever. Maybe throw in some little action lines, It's another sword. And look at that, throw in some dotted lines. It looks like it's right. Again, we're not nothing revolutionary here. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, I wish I could draw like you," or "Oh, I wish I could draw." You can. Another thing you can do with lines is show, different shading based on how close they are together. It goes from light to dark. This hatching, there's cross hatching. You cross over it, and you can add more and more layers to make it darker. And what I like to do is I like to do this sort of patch hatching. Sometimes it can be just kind of therapeutic too, to just fill out a whole page like this, you know, make little patches. You can make them diagonal. This can be a lot of different types of textures too, you know, this could be a basket, woven basket. It could be chainmail. I like to use this for chainmail a lot because you don't have to sit there and draw fucking... Nobody wants to do that. Just throw in some of these. And again, it's all about context. This could also be, you know, just the way that you shade every single texture in your world. It could be the back of someone's hand. You know, maybe they have, maybe their shirt has thicker hatches, just to break it up. You don't have to think too hard about, oh, what is this made out of? What texture is this? You know, I'm definitely someone who's guilty of overthinking world building a lot of times, when sometimes you can just let it figure itself out. You don't have to know what every single button on the spaceship does. It can be fun, but it can be fun to think through those sorts of things. But again, this could be a jacket. It could be the shadows of a lighter material, maybe. I don't know. That looks like a heavy jacket to me. You know, we're only working with black and white here, right? You can do a lot with just these two, the binary. You can do a lot with just these two values, right? And then we're not even talking about, I have set aside some dry markers to get some more texture. We're not even talking about texture. That's a completely different, that'll be a different episode probably. We're talking about lines. So value, no value. When I was in high school, there was probably an entire semester where I only drew with Sharpies because I was trying to figure out the basics of things, and then you can figure out the fun stuff afterwards. So I remember reading V for Vendetta and then trying to figure out how to draw these really simple faces using just shadows. Right? So you can think of this as a bunch of different lines. I would argue these are more shapes, but shapes will be a different episode. Shapes and lines. That's all the drawing is. Shapes and lines. So another thing about lines is that a lot of little lines can turn into one big line, especially if you're sketching with a pencil and you're not super confident in your strokes. You can always sort of, you know, just do these sketchy lines. It can also be texture, right? That can be fur, that can be motion. Pew, pew, pew. It can show perspective again, it can show direction. Things, right? Another crazy thing you can do with lines. Watch this. You can take a straight line. You can curve it in any direction you want. Any direction. Look at that. Crazy. Now we're getting back into lines becoming shapes. Shapes made out of lines. It's all coming back, man. I'm just farting around at this point. Again, we're just doodling. This is not the joy of creating a finished product that you can then sell and monetize and make a living off of. This is the joy of doodling. We're just... You know, I've been drawing my whole life. The majority of the things that I have drawn have been stuff like this. It's not finished pieces, it's not beautiful works of art, it's doodles and scribbles. And a bunch of little smiley faces. And this guy. Alright, I think that's enough aimless rambling for now. We'll be right back after a word from our corporate overlords. Alright, now that we're back, let's see if we can try some real-world application of these lines that we've learned. So if you're new here, I've been doing this series called Roll for Dude, where I draw fantasy characters based on dice rolls. So we've got different species and classes and armor, weapons, and I'll just roll the dice and come up with draw whatever character the dice tell me to. And now that it's been a year of drawing characters, I have all these dudes that I need to do something with. So this is an early version of the playing cards. Kind of a misprint. But I've got the first 100 episodes here. So I thought that I could take these characters and maybe doodle them out and see if we can apply some of the stuff that we've learned in the first half of the episode. So let's see. I'm just going to draw 3 cards and go from there. Ooh, we've got episode 86, Furbolg Ranger. Episode 91, a Merfolk Gladiator. And episode 72, it's a Halfling Druid with a wild magic rubber hose style. So let's just take a look at the characters so far and maybe examine some of the ways that I utilize the lines just on these drawings. You can see some broken lines on the chitin armor chest piece, and also in the background there's just the simple uncolored background to imply some variation. This guy's got a couple different lines of texture in the you know, we can see the curved lines curved this way on the forearm and then that way on the bicep. So even though it looks like his arm is in one direction, you can tell that it's bent. Same with the knee. Again, we've got some little action lines for his magic. Let's doodle these guys together. So we've got a fighter, a ranger, and a druid. So maybe let's start by seeing if we can draw these characters with as few lines as possible. We can start with the Zora over here. Usually when I'm drawing, I go either top left to bottom right, or really, I like to think of it as front to back, especially if you're drawing with just a marker. You want to draw the stuff that's in front first, and then keep going back. So sometimes you'll see me draw a hand first. You know, like if I was going to... Let's just draw them in their same poses. So if I was going to draw this guy, I'd probably either start with the hands, just in the head, and then bring in this side. But before I would finish this arm, I would probably draw the leg first, just in case it's going to cover up the arm, and also to sort of figure out the spacing too. So let's just say, here's his head, little eyes, We'll make him happy this time. And he's got his chest sticking out. Again, see, I didn't finish that line first because I wanted to draw the chest first because I knew that it would be in front of his head. And you know what? Let's throw in some broken lines for the fur. And I'm going to draw the inside of the wraps first, and then throw the outside on, you know, as opposed to drawing the arm first and then throwing the wraps on it. I like to draw the wraps first, and then that way you can give it some texture afterwards without having to erase anything. Anyway, so add some more fur, and then his arm again, and we'll just do a simple hand with a little fist. I'm sure I'm going to do a whole season on hands, let me tell you. People, including myself, often have a lot of struggles drawing hands, and I find hands to be pretty fun to draw, but I've drawn a lot of hands. Just give him his little dice. We're just going to make him little squares. And he's got his other hand in the front. Again, he's just going to have just a little thumb. Draw his shoulders sticking out. And now that I've drawn the whole top of his body, now I can go back and draw the back of his head and connect it to his doofy little neck. So I'm going to draw the outside of his forearm, and then I'm going to come in with the bicep and his back, so I can throw in his waist and his knee. I'm just going to give him a big, simple circle leg. Honestly, I find legs and feet a bit more difficult to draw than hands. And I'm probably not alone in that. Now, feet are kind of just like weird looking hands if you think about it. But maybe don't think about it for too long, because this guy's just going to have little flippers. Give him this other dice. That was the weapon he rolled. It was a fighter subclass gladiator with fur armor, I believe, and dice. And I'm like, how would he use dice? So I was like, oh, maybe he ties them together to make little bolos, like a gladiator weapon. And he's got this sort of gladiator arm. The one armored arm, and then the one free arm. And we'll just give him his little skirt. And again, I don't want to overdraw the legs, so some fur, the rest of his foot, and his little flat flipper. Bam. And now for the background, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't touch his foot, just to add, you know, some separation. And if I did make it touch his foot, I would have to make the other one touch, because then it would feel weird about it. But maybe that's just me. So I'm going to add a bit of, let's see how few lines I can add to his chest here to give it a bit more definition. I'm going to put one here for his little armpit. And I'm going to do one rib here with a broken little dot, and then one rib here at a higher angle, the longer little dot. And maybe a boop, boop. Done. Oh, here. Oh, here's another lesson we can do. So now for the back, because everything is these broken lines, I'm not going to do it the same way I did that, where it's a full thing, completely dark. Instead, I'm just going to add a couple lines back there. Done. Look at how much that elevated the... I'm going to maybe add one little knee here. And I'm going to call it for you, buddy. Gladiate away. Alright, so now the Furbolg Ranger. Furbolgs are like big, giant... I've seen them as sort of cow people, cow adjacent, or sometimes they're just giants. I don't know if there's an established, completely solidified lore for it, and if there is, I'm not sure how much I care. Can leave anything up to interpretation for fantasy characters. So I'm going to bring the tree closer, and I'm going to put her hand right here. And I'm going to just do those 3 little fingers and then 1 separated, just to kind of give it a bit of that juice. I'm going to bring the tree down here. Again, we're going front to back. Front to back. So we draw her arm first. I'm gonna leave these broken lines in front of it for now. I might come back and close them off. That's another thing you can do. If you ever feel like, you know, if I thought, oh, this looks a little weird that it's broken right by his face, I could close it off. You can always come back. You can't always erase, but you can always come back and close the lines off. So I'm going to do a simple little face. Make sure she has her ears and her dreads. She's gonna be happy too. You know what? I'm gonna draw her nose. Boop. So she had chitin armor, which is like bug exoskeleton or shrimp, or crabs, I think also make chitin. If you another thing you can do is when you're drawing something, you can sort of blur your eyes. Maybe I can trick the camera into focusing. See, look, if you blur your eyes, this is all looking sort of the same, right? I mean, no. Yes. So if you don't look at my finger, look at the drawing. It's all looking a little the same, right? So I'm just going to sort of block some of this off. I'm going to draw a solid shape, and then I'm just going to color it in. And now look at it. And now it looks like there's a distinct head, face shape, and a distinct shoulder and bust. So her leg is kind of up here. It's got this plate on it, and a little kneecap. And for this one, I'm just going to draw a big chunky shape and add the lines afterwards, because I want this to feel like it's a solid object, as opposed to the fur, like I said. So this guy applied to that guy, but this shape is applied to this one, right? They're essentially the same shape, but with just that one little decision, it can be implied to be completely different material or objects. So now, before I draw the rest of her torso and her other leg, I'm going to go ahead and bring the badger in. And we're just going to make him as just a little dude. Little ears. And draw her hand around him. And he's just going to be coming down a little tail. So I'm going to draw the top of the tail with a solid line, but then the bottom, just throw in some little broken lines, and look at how much more of a tail that looks. If that was just a little thing, right? We don't want to... Yeah. It's a tail. So now that I've drawn the rest of her arm, and I know where he's going to be, I can just fill in the spaces behind him. She's got the rest of her arm. And then now, finish out her hair. It's sort of falling behind her in these little strands. They're like beaded dreads, I suppose. I'm bald. I don't know much about hair. So, and now I'm just going to throw in some lines on her stomach here to show the shape. And I don't want to, because I already have this big dark shadow, you know, we've established that as the visual language of this character. So if it was only in one spot and it didn't appear here, it would look a little strange. But I also don't want to overload it with big chunky dark spots. So I'm going to close this shape off, fill it in there. And for this one, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to draw a second line right next to this first line, because I kind of like that it's broken. I kind of like that this line doesn't touch the tree, and I don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to close this shape off with a second line, finish out the tree, and then color this in for her back leg. And for the top here, I'm just going to throw some shading and a sort of directional to tie that in a bit more. And again, like I said, I wasn't sure if I was going to close the lines around her arm or not, but I think I will now, because now I want some shadow in the armpit here. So it doesn't line up exactly the way it does there, which is fine. I'm not trying to be precise here, but I'm going to add, let's say, some lines there, and maybe just a little shadow right there. And then she's got her trident on her back, so let's just have it sticking out. I guess it's kind of bony. Sometimes I just sort of draw shapes and then I don't really know what they're made out of. It could just be a metal trident, or it could be like a bug. It was probably like a bug thing. That's probably what it was, because it's chitin. A bit more shadow back here, and I'm going to call it there. Not too bad. On to the last guy. Clearly the simplest design here. So maybe, because this guy is already kind of simple and doodly, maybe let's do something a little fun. So instead of redrawing him the way he is, I'm just going to redraw his silly little face. You know what? I'm going to end it on another story of one of my personal favorite types of doodles, which I like to call potheads. And you will see why by the end of this. They are almost always very angry, mostly because angry faces, you can add a lot of crazy expressions and throw in lines in weird places. You know, I can just kind of do this, right? I just squiggled a bunch of lines in, I wasn't even thinking. And now it looks like a furled, super angry forehead. And maybe we can throw in the rest of the nose. Well, he has a little nose, so 2 little dots, and a dot is really a short line. A big frown. Another fun thing about frowns is, again, you can just throw in, watch this, squiggly little lines for a big furrowed chin. I don't know if this is advice, but it's definitely something that I do, and I know I'm not alone. Usually when I draw faces, you will find me making the face that I'm drawing, so I remember a couple times I would be mad mugging a piece of paper and then look up and people were looking at me funny. But don't let that stop you. We'll throw in some angry wrinkles. And now I'm just going to bring it in with, I'm going to overshoot the chin here, or the cheek here past the chin. And then I'm going to do the same back here, except I'm going to tie it into an ear. So because I'm drawing this guy, I have to give him hair. But usually when I draw a pothead, they're almost always bald. But I'll let it slide for this fella. I'll give him his spiky widow's peak. I'll bring it all the way back down to his ear. Ears are fun. I might do a whole episode on ears too, because there's a lot of ways you can draw ears. You know, you can do that. You can do that. You can do whatever. Getting ahead of myself. Simple hair. And then they got wacky necks. Twist around. And come out of a pot. There it is. A pothead. I'm not sure what you thought I meant. Well, I think I'm going to end it there. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Keep on doodling, and I'll see everybody in the next episode.
Thanks for watching! If you want to support me any more than you already have, just by getting to the end of the video, you can check out my Ko-Fi shop. You can like and subscribe. Bye!